Before we start, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell so you stay updated with all our new videos. Sorry if the video's a bit long, this show just has a lot going on. The Earth is completely destroyed and uninhabitable after countries hit each other with nuclear missiles over 100 years ago. The only humans left are those living in a huge space colony called the Ark. Now there's a girl named Clarke who's locked up for reasons we'll find out soon. Something strange happens, and 100 teenage prisoners, all under 18, are suddenly sent to Earth. You'll understand why they're all under 18 in a bit. Clarke's mom, Abby Griffin, is the doctor on the Ark. She tells her daughter that she's being given a second chance at life because on the Ark, if a prisoner turns 18 or commits a crime after 18, they get executed in space. There are no exceptions. The spaceship carrying 100 teenage prisoners lands on Earth, a planet that was destroyed by nuclear war 100 years ago. Inside the ship is Finn, known as Spacewalker, because he was jailed for wasting oxygen during a spacewalk. Clarke was locked up for a different reason. Her father discovered that the oxygen systems on the Ark were failing, and soon everyone there would die unless drastic measures were taken. Her dad wanted to tell the people the truth, recording a video to warn them. But before he could show it, he was arrested and executed, floated out into space, under the orders of the Ark's leader, Jaha, who didn't want panic. Clarke, following her father's footsteps, tried to tell the truth, but was also arrested. Because she was under 18, she was spared death. The 100 prisoners, all under 18, were sent to Earth as an experiment to see if the planet had become habitable again. Since the Ark is running out of oxygen, the leaders need to know if it's safe for everyone to return to Earth. These teens were chosen because they were close to turning 18 and would have been executed anyway due to their crimes. There's a guy named Wells who was Clarke's best friend growing up. They were practically raised together. However, Clarke isn't speaking to him anymore. Before her father died, Clarke had confided in Wells and her mother about her dad's plan to reveal the truth about the failing oxygen system on the Ark. But suddenly, Jaha, the leader of the Ark and Wells' father, found out. Clarke assumed Wells had betrayed her and told his father, leading to her dad's execution. Since then, Clarke has hated Wells, believing he's the reason her father was killed. We'll later learn the full truth behind this situation. Wells still cared deeply for Clarke, loving her like a sister. To protect her, he purposely got himself arrested so he could be sent to Earth with her. Even though he's the leader's son on the Ark, the law applied to everyone. With no exceptions, any mistake could lead to death. When the prisoners land on Earth, they are surprised to find that the planet is lush, full of greenery, forests, and life. It's a far cry from the uninhabitable wasteland they expected. They're overjoyed to be back on Earth, their ancestral home, but this is just the beginning of their challenges. Before sending the 100 prisoners to Earth, Jaha, the leader, instructed them to head straight to a place called Mount Weather, a massive underground facility designed to survive any disaster. It was supposed to provide them with equipment and supplies for survival. However, the spaceship landed far from Mount Weatherwave, and now the teens had to travel there on foot. Clarke and Wells immediately urged everyone to head there, but no one listened, especially not Wells, since many blamed him for being the son of the leader, who imprisoned and executed many people on the Ark. But to be fair, Jaha was enforcing rules made by previous leaders necessary for survival. Clarke managed to gather a small group to find Mount Weather. This group included Finn, Octavia, Monty, a plant expert and electronics specialist, Jasper, a chemistry expert, and Clarke herself. If you're wondering why Wells didn't join, it's because he was injured and Clarke still couldn't forgive him. As Clarke and her group started their journey, it's important to mention that 3 people who despised Jaha the most were Bellamy, his sister Octavia, and Murphy. They had their reasons for hating Jaha deeply. The Ark had a strict one-child policy. No family was allowed to have more than one child. If a second child was born, they were either taken away or, in some cases, the mother was forced to terminate the pregnancy and face execution. Bellamy's mother became pregnant with his sister Octavia and kept the pregnancy hidden. When Octavia was born, she was kept a secret for 16 years, never leaving their small room. Their mother hid Octavia in a small crawl space whenever patrols came by to ensure no rules were being broken. Bellamy, who loved and protected his sister, always helped his mother keep her safe, keeping her confined to a small room to avoid being caught by the patrols that regularly checked for rule violations. Bellamy worked as a guard on the Ark, So one day he took a risk and snuck Octavia out to attend a masquerade party, giving her a chance to see the outside world for the first time. Unfortunately, Octavia was discovered, arrested, and sent to Earth along with the other 99 prisoners. At the time, Bellamy committed an unforgivable crime to ensure he could follow his sister to Earth. He shot Jaha, the leader of the Ark. He did this so he could sneak onto the dropship and protect Octavia. We'll learn in the next part why he did it and who helped him. Thankfully, Clarke's mother, Abby, was able to treat Jaha, and he's now fully recovered. As for Murphy, he hated Jaha because years ago Murphy's father stole medicine to treat him when he was sick, but was caught and executed. Since then, Murphy has harbored a deep resentment toward Jaha. The 100 were fitted with wristbands that monitored their health and transmitted the data back to the Ark. So the people there could know if they were alive or if Earth was habitable. Bellamy, however, convinced many of the teens to remove their wristbands so that the Ark would think they were all dead and Earth wasn't safe. He even ordered a group to forcibly remove Wells' wristband, trying to make sure his father, Jaha, believed Earth wasn't suitable for the Ark's inhabitants. Let's get back to Clarke's group, who encountered quite a few challenges along the way. They came across animals with deformities caused by the lingering radiation from the nuclear fallout years ago. Some animals had even evolved, like the strange creature in the lake that almost ate Octavia, but they saved her just in time. Despite these dangers, the group kept moving forward. As they crossed the lake, Jasper was suddenly struck by a spear. Clarke and the others panicked and ran, but when they heard Jasper's voice again, they realized he was still alive. When they returned to the spot, Jasper was gone. He'd been taken. The group rushed back to camp and immediately warned everyone that they weren't alone on Earth. But just as Clarke was about to explain more, she found out that Bellamy had been forcing people to remove their wristbands. Clarke realized that Bellamy and the others were removing their wristbands to make the Ark think Earth wasn't habitable. She confronted them, explaining that what they were doing was dangerous because the oxygen systems on the Ark were failing, and without proof that Earth was safe, everyone on the Ark would die. The wristbands were the only way to signal that Earth was livable. But Bellamy convinced the others not to listen, warning them that if the Ark came down, the 100 would be imprisoned again. The group sided with Bellamy and continued removing their wristbands. Clarke gathered some supplies from the dropship and decided to leave Monty behind, since he was the only scientist among the 100 who could figure out a way to communicate with the Ark. She couldn't risk him joining the mission. Reluctantly, Clarke took Wells with her, even though she still didn't trust him, because their group was small and needed all the help they could get. Finn, Bellamy, and Murphy also joined, while Bellamy instructed the rest to build walls around the dropship while they were away. The group followed Jasper's trail for a while, spotting blood on leaves and branches, which led them deeper into the forest. Finally, they found his glasses half buried in the dirt, confirming they were on the right path and pushing them to keep going. Finally discovered Jasper tied to a tree, surprisingly still alive, and noticed that someone had treated his wounds with herbs. As they were untying him, a tiger suddenly attacked. Wells reacted quickly, using a gun to kill the animal. They brought both Jasper and the tiger back to camp, where the tiger would serve as much needed food for the group. Back at the dropship, Clarke tried to treat Jasper, who was still suffering from his injuries despite the herbal treatment. Bellamy, on the other hand, used the tiger meat as leverage, offering it only to those who removed their wristbands. The next day, Jasper's condition worsened due to the spear wound, and it became clear that he still needed better medical attention to survive. As I mentioned earlier, Jasper had been struck by a spear and treated with herbs, but he was still very sick and in desperate need of further treatment. Meanwhile, Bellamy noticed that 2 people had been missing from the camp for a while, so he took a few men to search for them. Clarke, on the other hand, set out with Finn and Wells to search for more medicinal herbs that could help Jasper recover. After searching for a while, they finally found the healing herbs that could help Jasper. Just as they were about to head back, a sudden acid fog storm appeared on the horizon. The group ran as fast as they could and stumbled upon an old, half-buried car. They quickly took shelter inside, knowing that the fog could burn their skin and kill them if they stayed outside. As they waited for the storm to pass, Clarke and Finn casually talked to pass the time, their conversation light despite the tense situation. Wells, sitting nearby, attempted to join in, eager to reconnect with Clarke. But as soon as he spoke, Clarke's demeanor shifted. She coldly ignored him, still holding him responsible for her father's death. Once the fog finally cleared, they cautiously emerged from the car and began the trek back to the dropship. Meanwhile, Bellamy had been searching for the missing members of his group. When he found them, it was too late. All but one had perished from the deadly fog. The lone survivor was badly burned, barely clinging to life. When Clarke saw him, she immediately realized there was no saving him. His agony was unbearable, and with no other choice, Clarke made the difficult decision to end his suffering swiftly, a burden she didn't take lightly. After returning to camp, Clarke used the herbs they had found to treat Jasper. Not long after, she went to speak with Wells. She needed to know the truth, sensing deep down that maybe Wells wasn't responsible for her father's death. Wells finally confessed that it was Clarke's mother, Abby, who had accidentally told Jaha about Clarke's father's plan. This led Jaha to execute him, and Wells had kept it a secret to protect Clarke from hating her own mother. Upon learning this, Clarke realized Wells was never at fault, and the two reconciled. Shortly after, Clarke checked on Jasper again, and to her relief, his condition had improved. His health was slowly returning. Meanwhile, Wells sat outside the dropship, lost in thought. A young girl named Charlotte, who had been haunted by nightmares of Jaha executing her parents, approached him. Earlier, Bellamy had given her a knife, telling her to use it to kill her demons, though he meant it figuratively, to give her confidence. However, consumed by her trauma, Charlotte took it literally. She sat next to Wells and, in a tragic turn of events, stabbed him to death, seeking revenge for what Jaha had done to her family. The next day, when they discovered Wells' body, Clarke was devastated. The group buried him, assuming it was the Grounders, the name they gave to the people already living on Earth who were responsible for his death. The remaining 100 continued working to build a secure base around the dropship. They erected strong walls and crafted weapons to defend themselves. While Octavia and Jasper were outside the walls, they stumbled upon a knife at the spot where Wells had been killed. They immediately recognized it as belonging to Murphy, the outcast of the group. When Clarke and Bellamy found out, Clarke confronted Murphy, accusing him of murdering Wells. Murphy denied everything, but Clarke was adamant that he was guilty. Murphy, known for his aggressive and disliked behavior, quickly became the target of the group's anger. Clarke wanted him imprisoned, but the rest of the camp demanded his execution, believing he was too dangerous to keep around. They grabbed Murphy, beat him up, and tied him to a tree, preparing to execute him by hanging. Bellamy, wanting to maintain his role as the group's leader, gave the order and kicked the chair from under Murphy, leaving him to suffocate. Just as Murphy was about to die, Charlotte, overwhelmed with guilt, finally confessed to killing Wells. Clarke quickly cut Murphy down to save him. Despite the truth being revealed, the group was furious at Charlotte for hiding her crime. Bellamy tried to calm everyone down, but Murphy, enraged that they were so quick to blame him, hit Bellamy with a stick, knocking him unconscious. Fueled by anger and revenge, Murphy then went after Charlotte. Clarke and Finn realized the danger and quickly took Charlotte and fled to hide her. During their time in hiding, Finn and Clarke grew closer, with their feelings for each other deepening. After a while, they all fell asleep, but when they woke up, Charlotte had run off. Clarke and Finn searched for her, but Charlotte didn't want anyone else to get hurt because of her. She was ready to face Murphy and accept her fate. Eventually, the group caught up with Charlotte, including Bellamy and Murphy. Standing on the edge of a cliff, Charlotte, overwhelmed with guilt and not wanting to cause more harm, made a heartbreaking decision. As she threw herself off the cliff, ending her life. Bellamy snapped, tackling Murphy to the ground and beating him relentlessly. Blood poured from Murphy's face until Clarke and Finn managed to pull Bellamy off. Glaring down, Bellamy banished Murphy from the camp without a second thought. So they returned to the camp and informed everyone that they had punished Murphy, setting an example. From now on, anyone who made a mistake would face consequences. They wouldn't live in a lawless jungle anymore. Meanwhile, on the Ark, the large number of wristbands being removed led the leaders to believe that Earth might not be habitable after all. Abby, Clarke's mother and the head doctor, refused to give up hope. She suspected that the kids might have removed the wristbands themselves. That's when Raven, a skilled mechanic, stepped in. She revealed to Abby that the wristbands were easy to remove and the kids could have taken them off intentionally. Raven had another motivation. Someone she cared about was down on Earth. Abby quickly presented this theory to the Ark's council, of which she was a member. However, the council was hesitant, worried that Abby could be wrong, and that the kids were actually dead. To conserve oxygen, the council proposed executing 209 people on the Ark to buy more time for the engineers to fix the oxygen system. Abby and a few other members strongly opposed this, believing that the 100 on Earth might still be alive. Jaha, upon hearing Abby's optimism about his son and the others, postponed the decision for 10 more days. He gave Abby a deadline, If she couldn't prove the kids were alive within that time, they would have no choice but to forget about the kids and execute 320 people instead to make up for the delay. Abby went to meet Raven again, taking her to a hidden location on the Ark that very few people knew about. There was a second dropship there, but it only had room for 2 people. Abby asked Raven to fix the ship as quickly as possible so that she could use it to get to Earth. Raven agreed, but only on the condition that she could go along, her motivation being to reunite with the person she loved on Earth. Abby agreed, but there was a problem. The ship was in terrible shape and needed a lot of repairs. Raven worked tirelessly, fixing as much as she could, but some essential parts were missing. In the end, she could only make the ship support 1 person, and that person would have to wear a spacesuit for the entire journey. Abby decided Raven would go alone, taking a communication device with her to report on the condition of Earth once she landed. Raven set off on her mission, descending to Earth in the dropship. However, Kane, Jaha's assistant and a member of the council, found out about Abby's secret plan with Raven and had her arrested. She was soon released because the medical bay became overwhelmed with patients suffering from oxygen shortages. Jaha informed her that the council had voted to execute 320 people to buy more time to fix the oxygen system. Distraught, Abby went back to her quarters and retrieved a video her husband had recorded before his death, the one he had intended to share with everyone, but never got the chance. She broadcasted it across the Ark. The video revealed the truth about the Ark's failing oxygen supply, something the leaders had hidden. Surprisingly, instead of causing chaos, the people united. They understood that sacrifices needed to be made for the greater good, to protect the children and save as many lives as possible. More than 320 people volunteered for execution, but the council only took the necessary 320. Everyone regretted executing Clarke's father back then, because as the video showed, he had been right all along. The people should have been allowed to know and choose for themselves. Raven finally landed on Earth after a tough journey, but she was unconscious when she arrived. Clarke, Finn, and Bellamy were the first to spot her dropship descending from the sky. Clarke and Finn rushed to Bellamy, urging him to go with them to the landing site. However, Bellamy insisted it was too dangerous to go at night, fearing the grounders might ambush them. He told them to wait until morning, but secretly, Bellamy went alone. He reached the dropship, found Raven's communication device, and threw it into the river, afraid that if the Ark came down, they would arrest or execute him for shooting Jaha. So the next morning, Clarke and Finn headed to the dropship and found Raven unconscious. They revived her and she was overjoyed to see Finn, revealing that he was the person she loved. She also marveled at the beautiful sights of Earth, though Clarke's heart sank, realizing that her budding feelings for Finn were now hopeless. Raven quickly informed Clarke that she had only been able to make the trip with Abby's help, and they needed to contact the Ark immediately because 320 people were set to be executed to save oxygen. Frantically, they searched for the communication device but couldn't find it. Clarke quickly realized that Bellamy must have taken it. Knowing he had been against the Ark coming down from the start, they confronted Bellamy, and Raven immediately recognized him as the man the Ark was searching for, revealing that Jaha wasn't dead, so he didn't need to worry about being executed. Clarke tried to reassure him, saying that Jaha might forgive him, but Bellamy confessed that it was too late. He had thrown the device into the river to protect himself. They all rushed to the river and found the device, but it was soaked and needed time to dry, a day they didn't have, knowing that by then, 320 people would be dead on the Ark. Raven then came up with a brilliant plan to use parts from the 2 dropships to make signal flares. These flares could reach the atmosphere and signal the Ark that the people on Earth were still alive. They worked hard to build the flares, but time was running out. On the Ark, volunteers were already being placed in a room where the oxygen was cut off, and they died believing they were doing the right thing. Jaha and Abby watched in sorrow, knowing the heavy cost. After a while, Jaha sat down with Abby, and they discussed the difficult choices they had made that day, both filled with sadness. Meanwhile, on Earth, the kids launched the signal flares. As Jaha and Abby looked up at the sky, they saw the bright lights. At that moment, they realized that the kids on Earth were still alive. After finishing their work, Bellamy started searching for his sister Octavia. When she didn't show up, he gathered a group and went out to look for her. As they tracked her, they found her trail leading to a disturbing site filled with hanging bodies. Many of the search party were so horrified that they turned back, but Bellamy, Finn, Jasper, and a few others pressed on, searching until dawn. Suddenly, they were ambushed by a group of grounders who swiftly attacked, killing one of their group members. Panic spread as the rest were forced to flee, running through the forest as fast as they could. The grounders had set multiple traps, capturing them like prey one by one. It seemed like there was no escape, and they were cornered. But just when all hope was fading, a loud horn echoed through the trees. The unexpected sound made the grounders pause and then retreat, leaving the group bewildered but safe for the moment. Bellamy and the group sought refuge in a nearby tent, where Finn explained that he had heard this horn before during a previous acid fog storm with Clarke. They waited, but the storm never came. When they ventured out, they saw one of the grounders running, so they followed him, hoping he could lead them to Octavia. Meanwhile, Octavia had previously been wandering through the forest when she was knocked unconscious. When she awoke, she found herself in the care of a grounder named Lincoln, who had saved her and treated her injured leg. Though Lincoln was kind, he was also rough, and Octavia remained scared of him. One day, while he was away, she managed to knock him out with a stick and started to free herself. At that moment, Bellamy and the others arrived, having followed Lincoln. As they prepared to leave, Finn noticed a horn around Lincoln's neck and realized he was the one who had sounded it, allowing them to escape earlier. But suddenly, Lincoln regained consciousness and stabbed Finn with a knife. The group subdued Lincoln and brought Finn back to camp. Clarke, seeing how badly injured Finn was, asked Raven to fix the communication device so they could contact the Ark for help. Without it, Finn wouldn't survive. As if things couldn't get worse, a storm hit, slowing down their attempts to communicate with the Ark. Clarke stayed by Finn's side while Raven worked frantically to get the device functioning. So meanwhile, on the Ark, Jaha and Abby were discussing the lights they had seen in the sky when Raven's voice came through, confirming that she and the others were still alive. Upon hearing this, Abby rushed to the communications center, and they managed to establish a connection with Raven and Clarke. Jaha learned that Earth was habitable and filled with people, but also that Wells had been killed long ago. Heartbroken, Jaha let Clarke continue speaking with her mother, who guided her on how to perform this surgery to save Finn's life. Thanks to Abby's help, the operation was a success. Back on the Ark, Jaha sat alone, grieving for his son. He was then approached by a woman named Diana, the former president of the Ark. Diana warned Jaha that people were beginning to lose faith in his leadership because he had authorized the deaths of 320 people, especially now that it was clear the Ark could land on Earth. The seeds of doubt were already spreading among the people, and Diana was positioning herself as a possible challenger to Jaha's authority. On Earth, Bellamy and a group captured Lincoln, seeking answers about the grounders. Octavia, however, didn't want her brother to hurt Lincoln, as he had saved her life. Bellamy ignored her, torturing Lincoln for information, but the grounder refused to speak. When Clarke arrived to intervene, Finn suddenly started having strange symptoms. Clarke realized that Lincoln's knife had been poisoned. In a desperate attempt to save Finn, they increased the intensity of the torture, but Lincoln still wouldn't talk. Finally, Octavia took matters into her own hands, stabbing herself with the poisoned knife to force Lincoln to reveal the antidote. Lincoln, unable to bear the thought of Octavia dying, finally gave them the cure. Finn's life was saved, and the crisis passed. Meanwhile, on the Ark, Jaha and the Council faced another major issue. The Ark had more than 2,000 people, but the ship that would take them to Earth could only carry 700. The first season ends on this cliffhanger. Will they find a solution for everyone to make it to Earth? Or will 700 survive while the rest perish? And on Earth, can Clarke, Bellamy, and the others survive the escalating conflict with the grounders? Is Earth truly safe? All these questions will be answered in the next part. Make sure you're ready for the next chapter, because things are only going to get more intense from here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the action. See you next time for more excitement.